Welcome to the listening room, Mantwa. It's an honor to have you, and we will just drive into the Joy of Jazz 2025. We'll look into you personally and your journey with the Joy of Jazz. Look at the evolution of South African jazz, but also speak to what you have in store for the upcoming Joy of Jazz 2025. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. I'm cold. I'm cold. I'm saying cold.
It's
People
really.
say getting warmer. It's not getting warmer for me, but thank you for having me.
Mhm.
And I'm really honored to be having this conversation with you. I've had, bits and pieces of conversation in passages, in passing, but I'm glad that we have a sit down and, talk.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we'll just start with you, as just Nje, as Umantwa. Your journey in actually being part of the Joy of Jazz, but also just your journey within the entertainment industry in South Africa. Could you just like give us a brief overview of your life in jazz and in the music industry?
Well, I started off as a lover of jazz because I grew up in a household where jazz was, listened to 7 days a week, not that Sunday thing that I hear people talking about. So when I was going to be dropped off at school, I'll be listening to Ella Fitzgerald, and I'll, swallow it with a pinch of salt because my friends were definitely not listening to that kind of music.
Mm.
And fast forward, I was then appointed at T Musicman on a default also because I was not seeking for a job. Um, then they plunged me into being a project coordinator for the voter coordination rallies. I don't know if you remember them. Before we voted, where there were government ran rallies to educate people about voting and.
Yeah.
Uh, Fast forward in the line of whatever I was doing there. I was then an assistant to a lady called Queen Khadebe. She passed on. She used to book artists that were managed by T Musicman to shows.
Okay.
But then when T Musicman then decided to have a festival of its own, the whole process was reversed back, and I was like, tasked with getting artists for the festival.
Mm.
So fast forward, yeah, here I am.
That's one hell of a journey. Like from being dropped off at school, listening to jazz, to then by default getting into team music, and now being at the helm of the Joy of Jazz and Team Music Men as well. The festival started off like about 25, 26 years ago, and it was held in the Joburg CBD, if I'm not mistaken. But over time, it's just evolved and it's changed, and it's become basically this heritage event that happens every single year. Just tell us about that evolution.
Well, when I started, we used to fill up forms manually. We used to call the artists on the phone. And, we didn't have, we did, I think there were computers, but they were really not in like now. The communication and the electronic space, the social space of using things was just, a few companies had that. And I think TV had one computer back then that we all used, but most of the time the things would have been done manually. I wouldn't have had access to Google. We used to have a book called Roots, which was more of a book where artists will go and list their managers, or managers will list the artists that they,
Or like a directory.
yeah, like a directory.
Yeah.
So we used to subscribe to that, and they will be posted, and we'll go line by line calling. Marion Meadows booked, managed by so and so. Yeah. So a lot of things were done really, really manually. And I think the growth came when we now have access to computers, access to the internet, where you can just go and Google and see who you want or what's interesting out there. Media played a huge role then, because you wouldn't have booked an artist when you haven't had them playing on a jazz program on a Sunday.
So media and radio were in the forefront of pushing the genre and also the events.
Actually, specifically radio was really, really big. I mean, I know that I used to listen to all radio programs, which I still do, just to hear what's new, what did they play, who is that, and all that.
Yeah. And then, I've come across a couple of articles where they refer to you as the Rakgadi of jazz.
Rakgadi of rhythm.
Rakgadi of rhythm, the Rakgadi of the jazz industry, jazz music in South Africa. To you, when you are referred to like that, what does that mean, and where does it sit in your heart?
Oh man, I'm the aunt actually in my household. I'm the mani, that mangwane, and in Black culture, to be called Rakgadi shows respect. I mean, you know how the Rakgadi pull the strings and do this and that, and I think I felt very honored that it's not coming only that I'm a Rakgadi in that industry, but even out of work, you meet me, I'll still make you feel or make you realize that I am that Rakgadi still here. I'm that kind of person. I carry my relationships from work to even outside work. I think people who have worked with me before, they know I will shout you because you didn't polish your shoes. It has nothing to do with work.
Yeah.
I would look at you and say, did you even eat when? You don't look good. I'm that person. So I'm happy that I am at a space where I'm not just that Rakgadi who will take care of the artistic part or the talent part of an everyday living, but I'm a Rakgadi every day. Pesima Bandu actually started calling me Hahani, and then it spilled off to everybody who said, okay, why does he call you Hahani? No, Mina Udaba Udep Swam. And then the other one came and said, now Rakgadi and Neni Makadzi, so that's how it. And I'm used and I'm loving it. I must say.
And also, I do think, as you just said, that it's not only within the industry, it's just a personification of the person that you are.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then Joy of Jazz is now going to be a 3-day affair.
Yes.
Can we talk about that? What did you see in the past, I'll say in the past 2 years? I want to speak post-COVID. In post-COVID, what have you seen within the jazz industry, the jazz industry as a whole, that says, let's make this a 3-day affair rather than the 2 days that we got used to?
So post-COVID, we personally, I if you remember, the first lineup post-COVID was a gathering of African giants.
Yes.
So it was only African musicians that performed. In that year, I realized that jazz is now received very warmly in South Africa or in Africa. We are owning the space. We don't depend on other countries to give us jazz or feed us jazz. We consume our own more than we consume international artists' music. And I realized that, the young kids, thanks to the young kids actually, who came up and took the space and say, they started the music, they are playing the music, and they're going to stick to this genre of jazz. None of the young musicians came up and changed the tune and said, "No, jazz is not going to make money for me," or "Jazz is, not getting me that thing that I want."
Mm-hmm.
But they stayed to the course. Jazz is very young. Jazz is hip. It's actually sexy to see young kids at jazz. At my age, when I was their age, it would have been, who do you spend time with? Go play with your mates. But now they occupying the space. And for us as a festival with the growth, last year when tickets were sold out and our tickets service provider had to turn people back, we realized that it's not good for us as a festival. We need to see how we can grow the festival. And the third day was just the thing that we wanted. It was the answer to our how can we.
Yeah.
So adding it that day, it's was just for us to say, okay, this shows growth. We'll be able to accommodate more people.
Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense because, you see that there's a circuit of jazz that's growing in South Africa, and it's not only in Joburg alone because a lot of time it seemed like it was only Joburg. You've got venues in Cape Town that host a lot of jazz. You've got venues in Durban, you've got venues in Mpumalanga, you've got venues in Joburg. So it's like you can see that the genre is being received and it's growing. And the question now is, how are you maybe taking advantage or working with this growth? Is there a network that in the background that we might not know about that you're a part of, or that you have touch points in where jazz is actually just being amplified and accepted in those spaces?
Well, to start with the team that I work with, there's young kids that I work with that actually come to say, Mama Mantwa, did you hear this? Have you listened to? And over and above that, I have always affiliated myself and I always made it clear that I would visit other festivals. I would visit other countries just to see how they do things, just to learn. I've told myself from the beginning that I'm going to learn until I say goodbye to the seat that I'm sitting. And there are organizations that that the festival as Joy of Jazz associate and affiliate with globally. We have friends in the media like yourselves. I have conversations in the taxi rank, with anybody. I have conversations with jazz appreciators associations. I have conversations with young kids at school studying jazz. Because most of the time when they are studying, this is when they do all the research and everything. So those conversations just helps to amplify our thinking as a festival to say, listen, we are busy sitting here and talking about a Hammond organ. There is now this new thing that is used, a Hamburg piano, So that's how we really, really help ourselves and educating ourselves and developing our knowledge, our hearing. What is it that other people are listening to now?
And there's this thing that I've heard with where I'm engaged in conversations around South African jazz specifically. And there's this one thing that keeps on coming up where it's like some people say, well, you know what? South African jazz is the best jazz music in the world. What do you say to that?
Yes, it is. It is. Other musicians wouldn't play and listen to our jazz if we're not the best. And every musician that comes to South Africa, especially jazz, I can put my neck on the block and said many conversations I've had, and people actually know when they come to the festival. You hear a person saying, I'd like to meet so and so, I'd like to collaborate with so and so. That means they have listened to our music.
Yeah, something happened last year at one of the stages. I think it was man, I will remember, but it was a South African ensemble where they were playing. And then afterwards, an international artist came on stage. And one of the things that he said was, you know what? I can't play that. Like that was just out of my, like I don't even understand how they even know how to play that. And he's like, I'm just going to keep to the jazz standard. And
Keiko Matsui played. No. Tlale Magene was playing in another ensemble before Keiko. When she got on stage, she didn't care whether Tlale knows her music or what. She wanted to hear that percussion, that African percussion. She invited him to stage and they played. And I think that's how music has to be, served.
Yeah.
We box ourselves as and I always say to young musicians, I would like to see you, next to Esperanza Spalding, playing your bass and merging and truth be told, every artist in the world appreciates the music of the other.
Absolutely, that I can, because also jazz is like it's a collaborative effort. Like when you think about the band, you think about the person who writes the music, but then the band in itself has a flair because when you enlist another artist to come in to play what you have created, they add their own essence into that, and it just becomes this built up structure or this beautiful fantasy or dream that is just a collective thing where other artists have to appreciate it.
Improvisation. We have said it ourselves that jazz is improvisation.
Absolutely. And then we know that the Joy of Jazz is an institution. It's not just the event on the day. It's an institution that travels to schools that nurtures young talents. Can you just speak about that? Because I think a lot of the time we become fixated on the festival. But the ideas, the build up to the festival, but also the other programs and programs that you'll do also in fact, sometimes play a role in what the festival starts looking like. Can you just speak to that? Like, because you're an institution.
Oh man, we always say our development programs shouldn't be used as publicity stunts because we're doing them with passion and the end game, we see it every year. We would have gone to a school on a music workshop. Later in the years, you see that artist performing in one of the biggest stages of the festival. I had a conversation with Billy Munama the other day, and he says, "Hey, man, the first time I saw Selaya Loseloto playing was at a workshop that the Joy of Jazz has brought to our school. And from there, I never looked back. I knew what I was going to do, and I knew that someday I'm going to perform on that stage." We do have programs that we pride ourselves because, we have case studies about them. We have the end results that makes us, feel like, yeah, we are in the right track. The one that we are recently working on is Jazz for Young People. It's a program that Winton brought when Jazz at Lincoln Center came to South Africa. So we loved the concept of, looking at young people that are in the jazz scene, not just giving them workshops, not just giving them clinics, but saying to them, perform. This is your stage. So we have curated something very beautiful over the years. Last year, we had workshops where alumni from the National School of Arts gave a talk and not only talk, but actually played with the students from various schools in Gauteng. And this year, we then looked at it that why don't we holistically say it is curated by a young person for young people. So our curator is Zoe Mudicha.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We have a mini concert, a family concert actually, that's going to take place on the 26th of July on the National School of Arts grounds.
Okay.
She has curated a lineup with music bands. She will be going and to the schools and mentoring them to prepare them for that day. We're going to have, young musicians performing for their peers. And of course, we have opened it up to family so that we can come and see our kids, following in our footsteps.
Yeah.
And I urge and I plead with all the musicians, jazz musicians that have been in the field for the longer periods to come. You don't know when you see somebody that's doing good, or that you love what he's doing or she's doing, and you see them in person. You know what that does to you? I started working with I had a mentor. Rapita has always been mentoring me. And every time I do something or present something and I see his face lights up, I always felt that I am in the right track. So I'm asking all the musicians out there that support to these kids, just a wave from you, hi Nana, says a lot to them. So he's cooking up something very beautiful for us that will be presented. Not only it's going to be musicians, the production team, the marketing, the PR team, we are handing over to the younger ones to do it.
As I said, the joy of jazz is not a moment that just happens. It's this institution that facilitates growth for young artists and for young jazz musicians. And I like, because we had a conversation last year, and you did mention that for you, it is always about ensuring that the future is sustained. That's why you most of the time you will give tasks to their young ones so that they learn going forward.
True. I mean, if we can always do it for us and for the ticket, or the humans on the seats, we are not growing anyway. We will be stagnant, because in years to come, somebody younger than me that I have taught and mentored must be able to say, I am ready.
Yeah.
So I should be able to say, listen, you are ready. I got that chance in my life where I had a mentor who eventually said, I can't do this. You even do it better than me. Do it.
No, it makes so much sense. And so now Joy of Jazz is a big institution. And there's a world out there that, as you mentioned before, that you're a part of even global networks within the jazz space. Do you see maybe like a pilot project somewhere else in the world, part of another jazz festival, where Joy of Jazz takes artists from South Africa and maybe implants them in another jazz festival? And what does that look like, and what does it feel like for you and as Joy of Jazz?
Oh, well, we've started it already. We have a very solid cultural exchange program or programs with international festivals. if you go to the Amersfoort Festival in Amsterdam, you will see a huge part of an entourage that comes under the umbrella of Joy of Jazz. So we are in talks with many other festivals because we feel if we were to book an artist from Canada, Canada must get an artist from South Africa through the Joy of Jazz. So we are in, like we wanted it to be a more valuable relationship. I know a lot of people will say, "Oh, we're doing cultural exchange programs," but when we don't see that tit for tat. So for us, we send artists to your festival. We will book yours.
You've been at the helm for such a long time, and you've brought us such amazing renditions of the Joy of Jazz. And it's evolved and become what it is right now because you were there. We know you've taken the baton from somewhere else. You are here. Let's look at your legacy. What would you say your legacy looks like? And what would you want us, when we think about Joy of Jazz when you were there, what are we thinking about? What did we see from you?
I think for me, I would love to leave a legacy where I was a more reachable person. First, I never wanted to be that untouchable, or you can get hold of Mantwa. Who are you? I just want to leave a legacy where I see, not that I think that young men out there cannot do it, but I want to continue a legacy or leave a legacy with young girls out there, whether you're from Soweto, whether you are from Mabupani or Tsakani, everywhere, knowing that you got the right to do whatever you want to do, and you can do it in this industry. We know that our industry has always been male dominated, but I wish I can have a chip or injections that I go and give young girls and say, don't even think about it as a male dominated industry. It's an industry that you want to work in and you will do it.
And also, jazz for me has always been a young person's sport. Because if you look at the jazz musicians that made jazz to be the way it is, they started young.
Very young.
Yes.
Very young. I can point a lot of people who actually played the jazz music or who are jazz musicians didn't pick it up when they are old. It's always been instilled in them from the younger ages.
Yeah.
Same applies to consumers. I'm one of them. Testimony.
Me too. and this is a last question for me. At the stage of Joy of Jazz in 2025, where Joy of Jazz is now saying, you know what, we're going to have a 3 days open for Joy of Jazz. What does success look like for Joy of Jazz when all is said and done? I think last year you mentioned that one of the biggest things that people don't understand is that as soon as the closing day is over, the next day you'll start planning for the next one. And I was like, ooh. So as soon as you're done, you move on right to the next one. So what does success look like for Joy of Jazz, for you guys?
For us, success would be, having a lot. I know there is a lot of jazz festivals that are happening, but we, as an entity, we sit and say, imagine if we had other four more Joy of Jazzes or 4 more Joy of Jazz like festivals in the country. Success for us would be not having to turn back musicians and say, oopsie, we have completed the lineup. Success for us would be saying to a musician, oh, you're not in this edition. Guess what? In the next term, we hit it with terms like in school. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. So in the next term, you are in the lineup. That's what success would look like for us.
Yeah, man.
The 12 month or whatever, 9, 12 months wait for us, it's a lot. It's just a lot, and it's draining because you end up saying to people who have worked very hard to create the music, and you end up saying to them, oh, you know what, we are full, we have completed the lineup, let's look at next year. It doesn't sit right with us at all times.
No, I know, and I absolutely understand, because you're working in a growing genre. You're working in a space that is mainly created for physical consumption. Because like it feels like when you listen to jazz, it's like I wish I would just be sitting or in the same space as this person is playing.
Yeah. So success for us as T Musicman will be having multiple stages or multiple festivals in the country where we then say, oh, you didn't make it for Joburg, but listen, you'll make it for KZN, you'll make it for that kind of thing.
No, we're with you. And then just one last thing, and I'd like it to be a message from you to young jazz musicians, young people who'd like to be behind the scenes within the jazz industry or just the music industry. What would you say to them, and what do you want them to keep in mind?
At all times, we sell ourselves short. We doubt our gifts. And I want to say to young people, if you think of it, or if it comes to mind, manifest it, work hard to see it happening. We dream about going to restaurants, right? And a wish, I could go, I wish I can go and eat this kind of food at that restaurant, and we make it happen. That should be your everyday system. If you dream of it, make sure that.
No, Mantwa, thank you very much. Mantwa, thank you very much for sharing your insights and your experience, but also thank you for just like being a continuous guiding light. Because at the end of the day, for me, with the conversations that I've had with you previously, there's one thing there's a thread, which is you are always looking at how you develop the youth, but also you're always looking at how you expand and innovate the festival itself. And there's nothing that gives that is heartwarming than looking at understanding their role. I'm here, let's go forward. Because that is basically how it is. I believe it's done. Our grandparents did it, our parents are doing it, and you are a living exemplifier that it doesn't have to be at home only. You can do it in industries as well and expand that for young people.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm humbled.
Thank you very much. And yeah, we'll continue having conversations.
Listen, hope to see you before the festival. Now it's speaking.
It will definitely happen. I will make sure that I actually come see you. We sit down and we have conversations beyond jazz. Just for me, I'm always one person who's like, I love learning from people, and all the Abandabadala I gift, because you're like a well of knowledge. So study pansy, have some tea, and discool.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Okay, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day, and we shall speak.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, cheers. Bye.